Okay, so this tutorial is going to show you how to create the effect where we've got a text with an outline and the background is showing through, so it's either fully transparent or it's got some opacity. In this case, it's got a little bit of opacity, so it kind of looks like you're looking through glass. The other alternative for using this is where you've got like some sort of call to action where you want to highlight words. So you have some of it is outlined and some of it's solid white. So this was inspired by something I saw in the Elementor Facebook community, where someone asked the question of how to get this kind of outlined effect. So there's an answer from another community member who mentioned this WebKit text stroke, which I hadn't actually heard of before. So I went along to the caniuse.com to have a look at how widely it is supported. Now looking at this, it looks like it's pretty widely supported. The typical exclusions is Internet Explorer, which I'm not too concerned about, and Opera Mini, which is pretty much excluded from most things. Even Safari supports this, and Safari's probably one of the least compliant browsers out there. There's a bit of a blurb here from the Can I Use guys saying that it's not a W3C specification. It was briefly included as text outline, but that's been removed. However, using the WebKit prefix with text stroke should be okay because it's pretty widely supported here, so I'm okay to use it. Now, so what we're going to do is look firstly at how do we get this outline effect here. So hopping over to just the demo site that I've got here, I'm going to create a single template, a single section. I'm going to make that 100% of the screen height or 100 VH and give it a bit of a background. So I'm going to go for a image here, say, I don't know, I might just pick how big's that. That's big enough. Insert that, set that to cover, and I might give it a bit of a background overlay so that it darkens it up again a little bit so I can see my text a little bit better. So I'm going to use my black global at, around about 0.3 just to give it a bit of a darkness. All right, so I've got my base to work with. Now, the text. So there's a couple of ways we can do this. The first one I'm going to look at is the simple how to do this kind of thing where the whole block is outlined. So in here I'm going to grab a heading widget and stick it on the screen, and so I can see it, I'm just going to set my text color to white. Now these white and black is something I just use by standard. There's a whole bunch of other standards I use, but in this dev side I've just got white and black defined. Now I'm just going to set that to white. Now that's not very compelling, so what I'm going to do is head over to my site settings, and I'm going to create a new global font, which I do for every site pretty much, which I'm going to call this bold hero font. And in this case, I'm going to use a nice big bold font, so I'll select Montserrat, nice and common. I'll set the weight of that to 900, so it's nice and big, and I'm going to put everything in uppercase. And I'm going to set the default size of that to 6 rem, so it's nice and big. Okay, so I've got a global bold hero font now. What did I just click on something? Okay, so heading back to our editor, so I click on that heading widget and go over to my typography and select my bold hero font. So here we are here, so we're part way through getting to this. Now what we're going to do is make an outline on this. So I'm going to use this WebKit text stroke property, and I'm going to go back to my site settings. What I might actually do is open this up in a, make sure I can't. Go back to my site settings, custom CSS. I'm going to call this the text white stroke. Nice and simple. set my text WebKit text stroke to 2 pixels, and I'm going to make that white. So /FFF, #FFF I should say. What's going on with my typing today? Okay, so that's a pretty simple rule. If I applied that to this, it would actually put a white outline around there. Now, what I'm going to do is suggest here is that we particularly target the H2 sub-elements. So anywhere I apply this text white stroke class, the H2s within that will have this applied. The reason I do that is a little bit later in this tutorial, when I use a text editor widget, we don't want to apply this to the entire text, so we don't want to apply it to all the paragraph text and other headings, etc. We just want to apply it to a specific heading, which would be the heading 2. So that's why I target that. So here we go. So I'm just going to just copy this class name. I go back to my editor, select my text, go to the advanced, and add that. Now you would have seen a very slight change, so just delete that. Have a look here, and it's very, very normal font. And then if I stick my text white outline or white stroke on there, then it changes very slightly. So what I'm looking at here is actually a white colored text with a white outline. So what we need to do now is go to the Style tab, and we need to reduce the opacity of the color of that font. So there we go. So it can be completely transparent or have a little bit of opacity. So it kind of looks like you're looking through some glass or something like that. So it gives a bit of an effect. So that's the very simple way of applying this stroke. Now let's say you want to make the word your completely white. Now what we need to do is we need to force that to be white, because we've told the color of this font to be that transparent white. So we need to head back over to our site settings, custom CSS, and create another class which is text force white. In this case, I'm going to make the color, and I'm going to add the important keyword, which I don't normally use because it interferes with the typical CSS hierarchy or inheritance. But in this case, I want to make sure if I apply this to anything, it's going to make sure that that color is white regardless what other rules are there. So it's just a cheats way around, but I'm just going to copy that class back to my editor. Now, to apply this to part of this heading, we need to wrap it in a span. So I'm going to apply it to the your. So I'm going to create a span, and class equals the text force white there, and we're going to end that span just after the your. And now we've just got the your as white, and the rest of it's got the transparent white background. So that's pretty much how we would do it with a heading widget. All right. So what if you want more than that? If you want more like this here, I mean, you could do that with the heading widget as well. But if you want that to be a text widget and you want to have bullets and all sorts of stuff in there, let's have a look at that. So if I go back to my Elementor editor and I get a text editor, now I'm going to make the color white so I can see that on this background. So I've just got a very basic line. I'm going to make the first line a heading 2. So I've got a basic heading 2, nothing like what we want up here. So I want to try and make this heading 2 like that. So how do we do that? The easiest way to do that is if we grab that same class there, the text white stroke, look at there's an H2. So what we're going to do is apply this outline to all the H2s that are in here. Now remember back in our class for the outline, we only targeted H2. So I can go to, if I grab the same class from here, text white stroke, and I go to my text editor, advanced, and I add that class there, it's only applied the stroke to this heading 2. It has not touched the paragraph tag, but that still doesn't look anything like what we want up here. So what we need to do is figure out how do we apply that bold hero font to this H2 down here. So by default with Elementor, as far as I can tell, when you create the global fonts, it doesn't create a simple class that you can use to apply that. So we need to do that. So I'm going to bring up my Google Chrome tools, and I'm going to use my element selector and have a look at this H2 that's got the hero font applied to it. And let's see that this is the class here that's been created. So I'm going to copy that rule, get back over to my site settings, custom CSS, and I'm going to put that in there. And I'm going to give it a different name, which I'll call my text hero font. There we go. Now we don't need the color because the color can be applied on the actual widget itself. So I'm going to copy that name. So basically I've just duplicated what that hero font is that I've created from the global settings and given it a class name. So what I can now do is select that box there. I can go to the text view, and on that H2 I'm going to add that class. And there we go, we've got the nice big font. Now, what we're seeing here is it's actually, because we've set the color of the text to white on this text editor, we've got a white text with a white background, which is not what we want. So what I tend to do here is I go back to my site settings, custom CSS, and on the white stroke, I'm going to default this to being transparent. There we go. So now it's transparent. You can make that anything you like. If you wanted to make it a red, you can make it red. You make it anything you like. In this case, I'm just going to make it transparent. Okay, so now that's defaulted to transparent. Okay. Now, what if I want to make the word lorem forced white? So let's have a look at how we did that here. On the heading widget, what I did is I got a span and created a class and added the class text forced white. So I'm just going to copy that, go back to my text editor widget. I'm going to put that around the lorem. I'm going to wrap that in the span. And we've achieved the same thing. So whether it's the header or heading widget where you put the span around it, or whether it's the text editor widget, you can do the same thing. So we set the hero font class we created on the whole H2. We set the force text white on a span just around the lorem. So that's pretty much how you can use this on text headings and on text editors. Hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you get some value out of this.